Hi everyone. In this video, we're going to be looking at lesson 13.2, which is equivalent fractions, use the number line. So we used the number line before in topic 12, just to talk about fractions and just show like fractions that were less than one, fractions that were more than one. So today, and especially in this solve and share, we're going to be labeling the missing fractions and then see, do any of them line up like with another number line? So are any of them in the same spot? If you were to draw a line down, would they all hit on the same points? And I'll show that line and I'll draw it as I'm going over the solve and share. But our I can statement is I can use number lines to represent equivalent fractions. And remember, equivalent fractions equal fractions, fractions that represent the same amount of something, whether it's half of something, 3/4 of something, 1/4 of something, finding other fractions that represent that same amount. So to get started, our solve and share says the top number line shows a point at 1/4 right here. Write the fraction for each of the points labeled A, B, C, D, E, and F. Which of these fractions show the same distance from 0 as 1/4? So first thing we have to do is go through and label all of them. So for my first number line, it's being measured in fourths. So I already know that my bottom number is going to be a 4 for my missing fraction. So I can just draw a 4 here. And what comes after 1? 2. Even though it's kind of like a Z. 2/4. Okay, so 2/4 is my 1 for here. Now, and also there's 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. So I know that 4 goes on the bottom. For my next one, to find out what is my denominator going to be, so my bottom number, 1, 2, 3. There are 3 parts, so my bottom number is a 3. If this is 1 part, this is 2 parts, so my next one is 2/3. Then for C, if I have 1 and 2 parts, I know my bottom number, my denominator is 2, and my top number is 1, because this represents one of those parts. And next, I have to label D, and this one, there's a bunch of little marks, so I'm going to make sure I count them carefully. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So since there are 8 parts, 8 is my denominator for both of my fractions for D and E. Okay, so they're both 8, I promise. And so 1 part, 2 parts, 3 parts. Sorry, 1 part, 2 parts. I missed my little tick mark because of my drawing. This is 1 part, this is 2. My top number is 2. And then my next one would be 4/8. So 2/8 and 4/8 are the ones that are here. And then last but not least, I have to label F. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my bottom number is a 6, and my top number is a 4. So my numerator is a 4, and my denominator is a 6. So for this, they asked, which of these fractions show the same distance from 0 as 1/4? So I'm going to change my color. I'll change it to like a yellowy green. And I'm going to try and draw as straight of a line as I can, taking my 1/4 all the way down. And I meet it at my D point. So D lines up. Yeah, this is the D. Capital D lines up with 1/4. So the fraction that lines up with it which is the same distance, is 2/8. So another way you could look at these number lines is just so going down, and I'll pick a different color for this, like a purpley color. If I were to go down, like 2/4 lines up with 1/2, 4/8, and then I go all the way down. I know my line's kind of crooked, but they line up if you were to take a ruler to it and bring them down. So it's just telling you that for this green line right here, that 1/4 is equivalent to 2/8, okay? Those represent the same distance, even if it's not even if they don't have the same amount of parts. And that 2/4, 1/2, and 4/8 all can be represented as well. And this guy here says, model with math, you can represent equivalent fractions on a number line. So for this, equivalent fractions by using multiple number lines and just lining all of them up. I am going to erase this now. So just pause it if you need to. Okay, and moving down, I'm going to go to like a light blue. How can number lines show that two fractions are equivalent? So how can our number lines up here that we filled in show that they're equivalent? So I'm just going to read my sentence answer. So I didn't need my pen for this. And I'll say it 2 times at least. So if the two fractions are the same distance from 0 and name the same point on the number line, they are equivalent. I'm going to say that exact statement in just a second, but that basically all that we're saying for this is that if they're the same distance from 0, so we know that our 1/4, I'm just going to go over that in the line, and our D point right here, which was the 2/8, they are both the same distance from 0 on their own number line. Now, it's not saying the same number line, it's just saying they say the same distance from 0. And they name the same point on the number line, so they're both at the same exact point. If we were to draw a straight line down, we can match them up perfectly. So they are equivalent, so they're equal. So if the two fractions are the same distance from 0 and name the same point on the number line, they are equivalent. Okay, I am going to go to the next page. Let me clear my screen so I didn't do that before. Okay, so for this, our essential question for this page, our essential question is, how can you use number lines to find equivalent fractions? So basically, again, we're just continuing on with what we talked about in our solve and share, and in our little can look back section on the front. So our word problem here says, the Circle W Ranch 1 mile trail has water for cattle at each 1/4 mile mark. The Big T Ranch 1 mile trail has water for cattle at the 1/2 mile mark. What fractions name the same points on the trails where there is water for cattle at the same distance from the start of each trail? Whole bunch of words. Okay, we've talked about this before, like especially in our math series that we're using now, it can be great, but there's a whole bunch of words. Okay, so what we want to do is try and pay attention to the numbers and just like which ranch they are associated with, so which ranch they match up with. And it's, yeah, like they had this like cute little picture like of like the cows and like the water stations and everything else, but it doesn't matter. What we want to focus on are the number lines right here. So they have this one representing the W Ranch Trail and this one representing the Big T Ranch Trail. So they are just asking to find which ones equal each other. So by drawing a line just straight down, and they have a little arrow there for us, we can see that they're matched up. So this guy here says equivalent fractions are different names for the same point on a number line. 2/4 and 1/2 name the same part of a whole. So again, they're the same part. This is literally, it's the same distance from 0. See? Same exact distance from 0. Oh, well, there's another mark here. Well, does that mean anything? No, it matters to the point that we're focusing on, which in this case is the 2/4, which is right here, even though I drew over it, and the 1/2 here. And again, it shows us right here. And it says the fractions 2/4 and 1/2 name the same points on the trails where there is water for cattle. They are at the same distance from the start of the trail. So again, just paying attention to those numbers, labeling it accordingly. So in this case, they did it for us. They labeled it as fourths, and they also talked about fourths in our problem up here. And then they measured this one in halves and marked it out for us. And they talked about the half mark in our word problem as well. So without going and saying and looking at all of like reading this a million times, because then you're just gonna get confused, just pay attention to the numbers. And again, in this case, which trail they go with. So we're gonna move down. We're going to erase today, that's okay. So for the convince me section here, it says model with math. So Ian paints 6/8 of a fence. Anna paints 3/4 of another fence of equal size and length. Draw a number line to show that Ian and Anna have painted the same amount of each fence. So I'm gonna go start that one more time. I'm gonna try and draw a straight line. Draw it over here. So I'm gonna draw my two straightish number lines. So I have my first one, and then I have my second one. I'm gonna try and make them as close to being the same size as possible. So they're pretty close in size. Obviously, if you have a ruler at home, please use that. So for this, I'm going to label my first one using Ian's measurements, which are eighths. So if this right here is 0, I'll mark 0 on both my number lines. 0, then I will start marking 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, 8/8, so that should be 1. And I labeled them, I said them out loud as I was talking, just because I thought it would be easier for me to go back in and just do my denominators all at once. It doesn't really seem to be the case, still pretty messy, but you can see what it says, and that's all that matters. So for our next number line, it is measured in fourths. So I'm going to break it down into fourths first, and then I will another line here and another line here. So I've tried to equally space it. I know this space is pretty small in comparison, but I'm also just going on the numbers up here because obviously I have the answers I'm going to be giving you right in front of me. So under this is 1/4, and then 2/4, 3/4, and this would be our number 1. So by looking at which ones are the same, I'm going to change my color. I'll go orange. So I will draw my line straight down. 2/8 and 1/4, those are equivalent fractions. 4/8 and 2/4, equivalent fractions, and 6/8 and 3/4 are equivalent fractions. So just keep in mind that obviously you can be using a ruler if you have one, or just trying and drawing it as straight as possible, because I know my lines are kind of wonky and they're on a little angle here, but these are still the two fractions that I connected are the equivalent fractions with each other. And for this, it just asks you to draw a number line to show that they have painted the same amount of each fence. It does not ask you to give any explanation. And this line is the one that would be most important because it gives us our answer. And the other ones just show equivalent fractions as well. Okay, we're moving on to our last page, which is the guided practice. First, so it says, do you understand? It says, complete the number line to show that 2/6 and 1/3 are equivalent fractions. So they don't include the second number line in this one. If you feel more comfortable drawing another number line and adding one in, you're more than welcome to. But I already see that six is my denominator for all of my top ones, in my top number line. So I'm just going to go and make 6 my denominator for all of them. And this is 3/6. So this is 2/6, 1/6, 4, and 5. And then underneath this is 2/3. So what comes before 2? 1. So there's 1/3. So it's just filling in the blanks to show that these two are equivalent. And they already have the boxes literally like lined up perfectly for you. So all you have to do is fill in the numbers. For number 2, it says, Sheila makes a number line to see if 4/6 and 4/8 are equivalent. She discovers that the fractions are not equivalent. How did Sheila know? So for this, you could have drawn number lines if you felt like that was the best way to explain your answer. I am just going to give a sentence answer example, but obviously if you put something else, I'll look at it when it's turned in. So it says, our book answer and like also my answer for this sentence would just be that when she drew her two number lines, she noticed that they were not the same distance from 0, or that both fractions were not the same distance from 0. That you could say that they didn't line up when she tried to draw a line to match them, because that's what I've been doing. So like in number 1, if I drew a line, those two matched up. I know that those are equivalent because they match up perfectly. And in number 2, Sheila would, if she tried to match them up, she would see that she could not draw a straight line. So she either checked by trying to draw a line between her two fractions, or they were not the same distance from 0 on the number line. Because remember, if they're equivalent, they have to be the same distance from 0, even if they don't have the same numerator or denominator. Okay, and then moving on to 3 and 4, it says, in 3 and 4, write two fractions that name the same location on the number line. So for this part, it's 3/6 is the one we have to fill in, because we have our 2 and we have our 3. Just gonna get rid of it. I'm going to try and write it a little bit smaller. I'll start higher. So we have 3/6 here. And for this, it's basically just saying what other fraction could be represented by this. And before I get started with that, I am going to bring my 3/6 over here, because I know that it's going to have to end up there anyway to show my final answer. If I were to draw another number line, I could make my right here as my halfway mark. And also another way just to check that, I feel like almost full on how do you know that it's half? Like you didn't draw a number line, you said if you drew one, etc. Look at this right here. How many points are on this side? 2. How many points are on this side? 2. So I know that this is exactly the middle. If this is exactly the middle of something, it's halfway. Halfway, half, right here. So 3/6 is equal to 1/2. On our bottom one, they do have like little green ones filled in for us. So the fraction I need to fill in for my top is 6/8. And before I move on to my bottom box, even though I kind of already wrote over it, I'm just going to make my 6/8 over here. And then they give me 1/4, 2/4, so it comes after 2/4, 3/4, and then I bring my 3/4 over here. And again, for this one, they gave me the green underneath the fractions for a second number line, what values it would include. And I just then counted on from 2 on to 3 to know that 3/4 was my next one that I would have to fill in. I'm going to clear it. Okay, and just going down to our bottom part. And it says in 5 through 8, write two fractions that name the same location on the number line. So for all of these, they gave us the fractions in green, which is a super important helper, especially because we're still getting used to doing this. So I can fill in after 1/8 comes 2/8 and bring it over. And then what comes before 2? 1, so 1/4. And then for the next one, what comes after 3? 4, so 4/6. And I'm going to bring it down over here as well. And then after 1/3 would be 2/3. Don't forget to fill it in both boxes. And I know some of you do write a little bit larger, so if it goes out of the box like mine does, that's fine. What comes after 3/8? 4/8. What comes after 1/4? 2/4. And then bring it here. Okay. And then last but not least, number 8, what comes after 5/6? 1. Or in this case, because we're going to go into fractions, like using the fraction amount, oh gosh, 6/6. And then what would my equivalent be? It's also a 1, but 3/3. So if you put 1 equals 1 in this, that's fine. If you put 6/6 equals 3/3, that's fine too. And then also for this one, just if any of you are confused about it, well, how is that equal then if there's 6 pieces? That's more than 3 pieces. No, it's not what they're talking about. It's just, is it the same distance from 0? This equals a whole, and this equals a whole. Okay? Doesn't have to be the same exact numbers. We don't have to be talking about the same objects. It's just, is it the same distance from 0? Yes. So I hope that this video has been helpful. If you have any more questions about this, please let me know. We're going to be having a Zoom meeting on Wednesday just to go over more of our fractions and everything else, and just showing you how we can use fractions like every day, and how using equivalent fractions can actually be really helpful for you. Because I know some of you aren't loving it, but that's okay. It'll get better, I promise. So you made it to the end of the video. Let me know that you've watched it and that you've made it this far so you can get your points. And just so all of you are so you know, so you're aware, when the topic ends, so topic 12 ended, and I go back and look through the messages I've received from parents and the notes on your math that you submit, you'll get points when the entire topic is over. So it's not going to be extra credit as we're going on. It's just all at the end of the topic. But it is important that you still keep mentioning if you have finished watching the video or not, or that you watched the entire thing. So thanks for watching all of it, and I hope that this helped. Okay, bye guys.